Hey, Sopranos fans, welcome to another episode here on Bully Whispers, and we are here today to evaluate if there was any way that Jackie Jr. could have survived after robbing the card game. Although, perhaps a better question would be how could he not survive a shot from that clearly fake gun?
That £6 piece of shit stuck in your trousers there do more damage if you fed it to him.
Maybe he just drowned in the snow. After all, he did almost drown in a few inches of water at the penguin exhibit, and penguins do live in snow, so this would kind of be coming full circle. Either way, the robbery was an idea that came from a story that Ralphie told.
It's like your old man and Tony Soprano. How do you think they got their name on the marquee?
And when Jackie brought it up during a plea to Tony, it fell on deaf ears.
When you and him did the same thing, you got forgiven?
Well, think about it. See if you can figure out the difference.
So in evaluating if there is any way he could have lived, we will start by determining the differences Tony was speaking of, before moving on to whether things such as his father still being alive, him handling the robbery differently, or better circumstances prior to the robbery could have saved him, and end by discussing whether or not he could have been a varsity wise guy had things gone differently. In looking at the differences between the robberies, there are two main ones that become apparent, and the first is the shootout. As far as we know, there was no gunplay in Tony's robbery, but during Jackie's robbery, Sunshine was killed, Furio was shot, and Christopher shot at. Sunshine wasn't made or connected to any other family, so his death wouldn't cause any backlash, and he's unlikely to be a significant factor. Furio actually being shot seemed to be oddly underplayed as a factor in the show, especially relative to Chris only being shot at, but could have proven to be a tremendous problem had things gone differently, but we'll get to that in a bit. The second main difference was brought up by Syl in a discussion with Feach.
Considering how it could have gone for you after you took the game down, if I had been a prick about it?
Or if his old man didn't have so many friends.
Obviously, Johnny Boy being alive for Tony's robbery could have been helpful in him getting out of trouble, so what if Jackie Sr. had been alive at the time? Would that have made a difference? Before digging into that question, I'd like to take a second to address the surprisingly under-discussed side of that exchange, and that is Feach's question. While it's more than likely that Johnny Boy kept them out of trouble, we don't know that Feach is entirely incorrect. Johnny Boy wasn't a boss, so it wouldn't have been his decision, like Tony reminded Christopher.
What happens I decide, not you.
As far as we know, the boss did leave it up to Feach, just like Tony left it up to Ralphie, although Tony may have had other considerations, which we will get into in the portion regarding Jackie Jr.'s circumstances. Either way, Jackie Sr. was boss, so it would have been his decision, and he was a man who loved his son. Personally, I think he would have let his son off the hook, and let me know if you disagree, but if he did, Furio's getting shot would have taken on a whole new level of significance. Boss's son or not, lots of business is done between Italy and the US, and if word got back that they let some kid shoot Furio right by his dick, that business would be jeopardized to say the least. This is especially so since by that point, Furio had already met Johnny Sack, who I'm sure would be more than willing to step into that relationship. But as it stands, Jackie Sr. wasn't alive, so what if Jackie Jr. had handled the robbery differently? Obviously, if he didn't shoot or had backed out after he saw who it was, then he probably wouldn't have been killed, and we would just be discussing if he could have been a varsity gangster, which we will get to towards the end. However, after the trigger is pulled, there are only three things that could have gone differently. First, the getaway driver could have stayed put, although that wouldn't have helped much since their identity was already known. Second, they could have killed everyone in the room. While very unlikely because they were outnumbered, outgunned, and shitting their pants, if they could have pulled this off, this would have been Jackie Jr.'s best bet. Although, to be fair, he probably would have had to kill all his co-conspirators quickly before word got out who it was. Lastly, and most realistically possible of his options, would have been to go someplace different. At that point, he had some cash, a gun, and a car to get him far enough away to steal a different car and keep going. He picked one of the worst possible places to stop. For viewers who aren't familiar with New Jersey, Boonton is only about 10 miles away from where Tony lives. Not only that, but he picks a place where he sticks out like a sore thumb. As soon as word got out that the Jersey mob was looking for a white boy in hiding, everyone would know it was him. Unfortunately for Jackie Jr., he wasn't anywhere near smart enough to realize this on his own, and he finds himself in Boonton essentially begging Tony for his life. This is where circumstances beyond the shooting start to come into play, with one of them being the current status of his relationship with Tony, and the other having absolutely nothing to do with him. In terms of his relationship with Tony, it was rocky at this point due to his treatment of Meadow. Tony had always liked Jackie, but the tone changed when he started dating her.
I know I've been saying this to you all along, but now it's different.
Which brings up two interesting hypotheticals that I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Always with the scenarios.
First, if he had never started dating Meadow, would Tony have let him off the hook out of respect for his father? Tony certainly wouldn't have been as personally angry with him, but I think other factors in play would have made it unlikely that Tony would. Second, if Jackie were still dating, or perhaps even married to Meadow, how much of a difference would that have made? Personally, I don't think him dating her would have had much of an impact. Him being married to her might have slowed Tony down, and him fathering Tony's first grandkid may have saved him, but none of these things came to pass. The other bit of circumstance which greatly affected Jackie Jr. but had nothing to do with him was the feud/chess match between Tony and Ralphie. Here, despite the fact that both of them had, at least at one point, an affinity for Jackie, he became secondary as he was now just a pawn in their chess match. With Tony thoroughly enjoying putting Ralphie in an uncomfortable position, and Ralphie not wanting to look bad shortly after being made captain, Jackie Jr.'s fate was pretty much sealed. By that point, even if Jackie had never messed with Meadow, the joy Tony felt over messing with Ralphie, combined with his hatred of him, would have far outweighed any affinity for Jackie Jr. Ultimately, I don't think anything short of Jackie Sr. being alive or Jackie Jr. fathering Tony's grandkid might have saved him, and even then there's still the Furio Italy situation. But what if Jackie Jr. had never gotten the idea from Ralphie? Could he have been a varsity wise guy?
You bet.
When considering this, my first thought was to say that he could be junior varsity, but that sounds like someone who could never be made, and Jackie Jr. had the potential to be. Despite being fairly dumb, we see in the show that you don't have to be particularly bright to get made, and he does possess the money-making mentality and moral flexibility required for the job. On top of that, until he ruined his reputation, his family name and history had the potential to take him far.
What's Jackie Jr. doing hanging out with that Mortadell? I promised his old man I'd try to keep him out of this shit.
He's the heir apparent.
So in that sense, assuming he didn't get killed for doing something else, he had the potential to be a varsity wise guy. That being said, he would have never been all-state, all-city, or even a starter on his own team. At best, he would have been a third stringer. Well, thanks for watching this episode here on Bully Whispers. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you at the next score. For those of you who've made it to the end, thank you very much, and I have been receiving a lot of questions about my next Machiavellian Monday. Marlo Stanfield and Nucky Thompson tied in the poll. I will end up doing both of them, and Marlo will be coming out first, although I just got back with my voiceover artist for the Putin Machiavellian Monday that I was talking about a while ago, so that will probably be released before the both of them. After that, Marlo Stanfield will come out, although that might take a second because I do have a guest voice appearing on that episode as well. But hopefully they will both be good. Thank you very much for watching and your support.